हेलो फ्रेंड्स, वेलकम बैक टू माय चैनल। आज जो टॉपिक मैं आपको पढ़ाने जा रही हूँ वो इग्नू का जो क्वेश्चन आपको जून 2018 क्वेश्चन पेपर में मिल जाएगा। उसमें एक क्वेश्चन है, राइट अ नोट ऑन द ग्रोथ ऑफ पैस्टोरल नोमैडिज्म। तो मैंने इसी टॉपिक पे आज इसका आंसर यहाँ पे लिखा है, आप देख सकते हैं। तो मैं शुरू करती हूँ। इसका आंसर मैंने कैसे लिखा है? इसका आंसर मैंने ऐसे लिखा है कि द एविडेंस रिगार्डिंग pastoral nomadism after Paleolithic phase is scanty. It can be said that nomadic hunting and gathering, following seasonally available wild plants and animals, was the oldest human subsistence method. However, on the basis of archaeological findings, anthropological studies conducted among the present pastoral nomadic groups, and the accounts sedentary civilization for first millennium BC, it seems that pastoralism was derived directly from hunting and gathering. The hunters of wild goats and sheep had knowledge of herd dynamics and the ecological needs of the herd animals. They followed wild herds on their seasonal round. In this way, wild herds were selected to become more manageable for the proto-pastoralist nomadic hunter and gatherer groups. Pastoralism takes place mainly in marginal areas where cultivation is not possible. Animals feed on the forage of these land, which humans cannot directly utilize. The herds convert them into milk and meat for human consumption. Five essential features of pastoral nomadism are: pastoralism being the predominant form of economic activity, maintenance of herds on a system of free-range grazing without stables, periodic mobility within the boundaries of specific grazing territories, participation in pastoral mobility of all or the majority of the population, orientation of production towards the requirements of subsistence. Two important aspects relating to the growth of nomadic pastoralism are regional and periodic variations. The studies taken up on nomadic pastoralism and settled agriculturalists indicate several resemblances in cultural peculiarities of both the groups in specific region. These regional linkages are stronger in comparison to the resemblances among the nomads from distinct regions. Further, in different regions, the nomadic pastoralism emerged at different periods of time. Bearing in mind regional and periodic variations, it is difficult to identify the circumstances under which pastoral nomadism began. However, the number of pastoral nomadic communities is decreasing throughout the historical times. It seems that numerous pastoral nomadic groups during different periods in the past opted for sedentary mode of life, giving up their nomadic ways. तो इसमें मैंने बेसिकली पैस्टोरल नोमैडिज्म का मीनिंग डिफाइन किया है कि वो उनका बेसिकली क्या मीनिंग होता है पैस्टोरल नोमैडिज्म का, क्या उसके फीचर्स थे पैस्टोरल नोमैडिज्म के। मैंने इस पैस्टोरल नोमैडिज्म के अंदर इस टॉपिक को डिफाइन किया है। अब है जनरल सर्वे और स्प्रेड ऑफ पैस्टोरल नोमैडिज्म। It is clear from the domestication and breeding of animals that while some species could thrive in a variety of climates and location, others were restricted to a single area. Slaughterhouse animals such as the camel, reindeer, and llama had a limited ability to adapt to changing climatic and ecological conditions because they were confined to specific region. They also bred specific species, but in many cases But in many cases, they had mixed herds such as sheep and goats with horses or cattle, or sheep and goats and camels in different regions. Many times, nomads and farmers coexisted in the same areas to sustain themselves and their livestock. Next topic is different regions. Around the 7th millennium BC, the Eurasian steppes were home to pastoralists. By the 6th millennium BC, it had also reached the Eastern European steppes and spread quickly to neighboring regions. In the beginning, mobility was limited. A large-scale use of horse in the 2nd millennium BC sparked the rise of nomadism, which dominated nomadic pastoralists for nearly 3,000 years and dominated large areas. This nomadism spread to Mongolia and China at the end of the 2nd millennium and beginning of the 1st millennium BC. China history is full of conflicting stories about the northern barbarians of various names and of nomadic and settled people. The Great Wall of China may have been built as a response to this opposition. Agriculture and animal domestication may have originated in Mesopotamia, Syria, Palestine, and Arabia as previously stated. Scholars have dated the existence of pastoral nomadism in this region between the 4th and 2nd millennia BC. For this reason, many scholars consider the dominant trend in this region to be semi-nomadic and movement restricted to a small area of land. Arabian nomadism dominated the region and spread as far north as Africa's Sahara Desert in Africa. In this region, nomadism relied heavily on camels. In the region of Afghanistan, Iran, and Asia Minor, pastoralists have been practicing since the 3rd millennium BC, but nomadism emerged much later and was at its peak during the Middle Ages, that is around 10 to 14th century. The Eurasian steppe nomads had a significant impact on the nomadic lifestyle in this region. Animals were first domesticated in Egypt and North Africa, probably around the 7th millennium BC, and we can trace the existence of pastoralism in this region between the 5th and 4th millennium BC. However, it appears that nomadism, as we know, it began around the middle of the 2nd millennium BC. When it comes to nomadism in northern and eastern Africa, camels were more important than horses in the 1st millennium BC. When it came to chariots and wheel carts, the latter was used more frequently than as a riding animal. It wasn't until the 1st millennium AD that nomadism was fully established in the Horn of Africa, that is Eritrea, Harsas, and Somalia. From the 1st millennium BC, reindeer herding was common among nomads in Siberia and other regions of North Eurasia. Yaks were also being raised by Tibetan nomads at the time. It is generally accepted that both of these groups are essentially nomadic people who descended directly from hunter-gatherer and remain descendant and remain nomadic until the Middle Ages. Domesticated animals were bred in the United States only in the form of goats and sheep. Elma and Vicuna were among the animals in this collection of specimens belonging to camel family. They were a source of meat and wool as well as pack animals for the people of the area. In the 16th century, Spanish settlers brought horses to the area. The nomadic pastoralist groups are only mentioned in the following period after horses were bred on a large scale. At a large scale, pastoralism was common in India and even had distinct social groups dedicated to herding and breeding livestock, known by different castes in different regions. However, the majority of these people were farmers who lived in semi-nomadic communities. As an exception, a few more pastoralists travel between their summer and winter abodes with their habitants at the same place each time. Herding nomads like the Gujjar and Bakarwal of Rajasthan, Gadis and Rabdis from Kashmir, Changpa from Ladakh, Golas and Kurubas from southern India as well as Lombards and Sungalis from other regions make up a significant portion of the pastoral nomad population in these regions. An investigation into nomadic pastoralism growth and spread over time shows that horses and camels had a significant impact on the development of nomadism. Although other regions relied on other animals, the horse has retained its value right up to very recent time. T.T. Dhani and Jean Perry say when discussing the importance of horses, these memories have been preserved in art, in ritual, and in gymnastic practices and ceremonies as a result of the dog's domestication, training, and proper use. The horse, like the food crop, is the foundation of the nomadic way of life and everything that entails in the process of nomadic cultural growth to steep civilization. Just as cultivating crops allowed the people to civilize life, horses were a way to control other animals so that they could be used in the service of humans as well. A large part of Southeast Europe, Mongolia, Transasia, and other parts of Asia witnessed the rise and development of nomadism, which allowed it to dominate sedentary societies for long periods of time. As far as we know, the nomadic empires they built extended into Europe and they had an impact on the history of Europe and Asia as a whole. From these nomadic groups, many of these sedentary societies in the region learn horse breeding and riding skill. As stated by Richard and Frey, nomadic nomads contributed to the art of warfare by developing weapons that could be carried on horses such as compound bow. The use of stirrup is a later development, but bridles and sandals were developed throughout this early period. When it came to warfare, nomads were always better than the settled people because they could easily retreat into the steppes or surprise their opponents because of their mobility. Arabia and Africa both relied on camels for long distance trade, and camels helped subjugate large desert areas. This helped to unite the region's small tribal groups. Next topic is extent of mobility. Though the mobility of pastoral nomads was affected by a number of reasons, but the most decisive was to avail favorable habitat for their herds. They moved in accordance with the seasonal schedule in the direction of greener pasture for their animal. Beside keeping in view factors like temperature and rainfall, they also adhere to the timing of sowing and harvest so that the herds do not cause any harm to the crops and graze only after harvesting and before sowing of crop. Mobility allowed pastoralists to exploit more than one environment at the same time, thus creating the possibility for arid regions to support human life. It also enabled them to evade adverse conditions and make use of favorable ones in the neighboring regions. This is particularly true of transhumance, which is a very common kind of migration where members of the group move the herd seasonally from one area to another, often between higher and lower pasture. Herders have a permanent home and only the herds travel along with the people required to look after them. Though the practice of transhumance is not regarded by some scholars as true nomadism, but the system is dynamic and suitable to the lands where it is practiced. The action of herders are carefully planned but also constantly adjusted to match changing conditions. In many cases, their roots are traceable for thousands of years. For example, in Eastern Europe, the route of Kalmuck's migration appears to remain the same for more than 2000 years. All pastoralist strategies exemplify useful adaptation to the environment. Mobility allowed groups of pastoralists to split and regroup as resources permit or as desired with changes in social relations. The spread of the area of their movement varied according to the topography and climatic condition. Therefore, the area covered by nomadic groups was very varied in different regions. Pastoral nomads generally had an area with a radius of 100 to 500 km. However, there are wide variation. For example, in a study, it was found to vary from 550 to 100 kilometers among Reindeer herders in Chuk- Chukotas, Chuktokas, 2000 to 1500 kilometers amongst the Kazakhs. In the steppes, the Mongols of Inner Mongolia covered 150 km, while in Outer Mongolia it was 600 km. The Navajos of America moved in an area of 2500 square miles. So guys, ये जो मैंने आपको आज पैस्टोरल नोमैडिज्म के बारे में एक छोटा सा आपको समरी प्रोवाइड कराई है। ये टॉपिक आपके इग्नू के टेक्स्ट बुक में भी अवेलेबल है। मैंने इस टॉपिक को समराइज किया है। वैसे आपके जो जून का क्वेश्चन पेपर है 2018 का, उसमें इसमें इस टाइप से इसका क्वेश्चन पूछा गया है कि राइट अ नोट ऑन ग्रोथ ऑफ पैस्टोरल नोमैडिज्म। तो इसमें हमें पैस्टोरल नोमैडिज्म के बारे में बताना है, जनरल सर्वे ऑफ स्प्रेड ऑफ पैस्टोरल नोमैडिज्म के बारे में बताना है, डिफरेंट रीजन्स के बारे में बताना है और लास्ट में हमें एक्सटेंट ऑफ मोबिलिटी के बारे में बताना है। ठीक है, तो आज के लिए इतना ही था। और अगर आपको मेरा ये वीडियो पसंद आया हो और ये मेरे नोट्स आपको हेल्पफुल हो तो प्लीज़ मेरे चैनल को लाइक कीजिए, सब्सक्राइब कीजिए और शेयर कीजिए। और जो बेल आइकन है उसको भी प्लीज़ आप लोग दबा दीजिए ताकि जब भी मैं कोई नया वीडियो डालूं तो आप तक उसकी नोटिफिकेशन पहुंच जाए। कोई भी डाउट हो, आपको कुछ और नोट्स चाहिए या और भी कोई प्रॉब्लम हो टॉपिक से रिलेटेड, आप मुझे कमेंट सेक्शन पे कमेंट करके बता सकते हैं। नेक्स्ट वीडियो तक बाय।